Welcome into the First Word presented by Dr. Pepper as the Cowboys fall in the season opener 24-20, the final score, as the Eagles, defending Super Bowl champs, win this one, and the Cowboys come up short on a late drive to possibly win the game, and it does ultimately come up short. Alongside Isaiah Stanback and Nate Newton, we're here talking about this really through the last couple of minutes, and it seemed like there were good things for the Cowboys, things to build on, but that at the end of the day, you didn't make the play needed. Dak Prescott had a couple great throws, couple misses at the same time. Same thing with CeeDee Lamb. Had a couple great plays, couple big drops. Isaiah, I'll let you start. When you look back on this Week 1 loss, what's going to be the number one thing that stands out?
I think that the players that did not get the reps in the preseason were not prepared to play today overall. That's not to say that they weren't competitive, but I believe that the coordinators did one heck of a job. I believe that that Coach Schottenheimer had a heck of a game plan and executed it well. He utilized halftime. He utilized the rain delay to his advantage. Coach Eberflus had one heck of a game plan seemingly for the Philadelphia Eagles offense, and he was executing that to a T. But when it came down to it offensively, too many missed mental errors on the offensive line, too many missed assignments in terms of blocking opportunities, too much pressure on Dak, drop balls, right? Those things showed up in a major way. Defensively, Eberflus can call the right play, but when you show up in the hole as a linebacker, you got to make the tackle. You can't lose containment as defensive ends when you're trying to contain one of the more dynamic quarterbacks in the league. So there's a number of things that the players will get better at, but seemingly they were rusty to begin the year.
Yeah, they started out hot. I mean, first half, everything looked good. But as the game got tighter and the game got closer, those things, like Eberflus called 2 back-to-back blitzes by both corners. Both corners missed. I mean, and your boy Jalen takes off and makes plays. You cannot have that. Jack Sanborn in the hole. But you know what? That's Saquon Barkley. You got to break this thing down and then run through him. Little things like that. I see Tyler Guyton started out well, running the guy around, giving him one way, but as the game would go on, he started giving a two-way goal. You can't do that. Then I saw a couple of times where my right side missed a couple of games and a couple of stunts. And as the game go on, the game get tighter, those things become big. And then right before the half, right before the thunderstorm, we got Sanders with a fumble. Even though they didn't get anything out of that fumble coming back off of the coming back after the storm, you cannot have those small things when you travel on the road against a Philadelphia team.
Well, also not to mention that was in the red zone too.
Yes.
So even though Philly doesn't score off of the fumble, you miss out on points. At least
you do.
3 in that scenario, whether or not that's a Brandon Aubrey situation or if it ends up being a touchdown. One way or the other, you're missing out on points. So the fumble comes up big. You look at really the numbers across the board, 302 yards allowed on the defensive side. Philadelphia finishes with that mark. They only ran for 4.2 yards per carry. So keep that in mind. All of those things are good for a team that led the NFL in rushing yardage a year ago. So Dallas did some good things there. But when you look at the defensive performance, it starts with Jalen Hurts. You could not contain him. Everything else you felt pretty good about it across the board. Coverage and shutting down Saquon.
Coverage was awesome early. You know, you think about some of those opportunities that Jalen Hurts had when he was able to escape the pocket. Why was he escaping the pocket? Well, he was escaping the pocket because his mental timer went off by being in the pocket and not having anybody to throw the ball to. So the defense was doing their jobs in terms of coverage, but early on there was no pass rush. Our defensive ends were going right down the middle of the tackles. It was seemingly they were two-gapping, which means put 2 hands on the chest of the guy and look either direction. That's not what you expect out of your pass rusher. So you felt the presence of what used to be Micah Parsons in those situations being vacated, and there was nobody who seemingly stepped into that role to fulfill that obligation to go be the pass rusher in those situations. So you can't lose containment. Everybody knows that. That goes all the way back to high school ball. But again, some of those guys did not have those reps in the preseason, and in games like this, unfortunately, it shows up early in the season.
And with that 2 gap, and what Coach Eberflus was trying to do was keep the umbrella.
Yep.
But you're facing too talented of a quarterback. Even when you collapse that pocket on, he seems to find a way out of there. And our tackling in open field was not good. When you don't have good open field tackling and stopping people right on the dime, that is what happened. Jalen Hurts was that X factor for them tonight. I mean, you know who Saquon is. You know who the outside receivers is. You know who the tight end is. But Jalen Hurts is that X factor.
I got to ask the question because there were times in the first half especially. Now, it was a tale of two halves. The defense played much better in the second half, allowing just 3 points. Unfortunately, the offense was shut out in the second half. But allowing 21 points in the first two quarters, how much did they miss Micah Parsons in that pass rush?
You know what? He would have closed down. Yeah. He would have put a lot more pressure. He's a lot more athletic than what we was bringing up the field. But you know what? It's who's got the ball last.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. But we know who Parsons is. He's an excellent pass rusher, and he would have made a difference in that first half. But as the game went on, it would have turned into a Saquon Barkley thing.
You missed somebody like Micah.
Yes, you did.
Definitely did his let's not act like you did miss him. You missed him because there were certain situations in this game where it was a third down situation and you needed a dog to go hunt. And you didn't have a dog. Today, you didn't have a dog to go hunt. Dante Fowler Jr. was getting hemmed up. Donovan Ezeraku was just too small, too young. He was getting thrown around by the experienced tackles for the Eagles. You didn't have anybody to go get him. Sam Williams was getting hemmed up. He was too gap. Marshawn Nealon, more of an interior guy. So who was that guy that can go pressure? You didn't see too much blitzing going on by Matt Eberflus, and understandably so. You were doing a great job in coverage. So I don't want to take anybody out of coverage where we're doing something absolutely excellent to go chase after a quarterback, especially when we have bad leverage, we're losing containment, and we're not making open field tackles. Somebody just has to step up and make a play.
Like I think in that first half, the two gap that they was doing as defense ends, they was trying to maintain.
Yep.
They did not do a great job of maintaining. You saw in the second half where he started breaking guys free. But you have to tackle. Yep. You have to make the play. That is where Parsons will not miss a sack.
Yeah.
That's where we missed him at. So, I mean, this is a learning thing.
Yep.
What we saw today, we hope the Dallas Cowboys to improve on.
It was rust.
Yes.
It was rust.
Yeah.
It really was. From the guys that were going to be playing in the game, it was rust. And when you have conversations about preseason, should my starters play in the preseason? This is why you see some of these teams that have been more competitive over recent years play some of their starters in the preseason because they don't want that rust to show up in week one. And what you saw today was literal just fundamentals. Guys weren't breaking down. Guys weren't tackling. Guys were losing leverage. These are all things that you can kind of get out of your system. You just hope that you don't have to try to get them out of your system when the games matter.
And, of course, in a divisional matchup like this on the road against Super Bowl champions, we're talking about the defensive line having some rust to knock off against the best offensive line, arguably, in football. Now, let's flip it back to the offensive side as we wrap things up here. What did you think of the way that things conspired in the second half? Everything was running. The running game early was good. You were able to throw the ball effectively. Dak Prescott was able to hit his targets for the most part through the first three quarters. Then it just kind of broke down as the game went along.
I just felt like you didn't have the balance the second half.
Yeah.
I felt like the first half you were able to have a balanced attack. You were able to run the ball effectively with Javonte Williams. Miles Sanders obviously did a good job. And then a fumble, obviously, that hurt us in a tremendous way. But the first half you had that balance, and they had to respect both ends of it, right? You had 2 rushing touchdowns early in the game. They had to honor that. Second half, I feel like they put the ball in Dak's hand and said, hey, Dak, help win us the ball game. And Dak started forcing the ball into some tight windows. There was almost a couple turnovers in there. And I just felt like they weren't as confident in their ability to be able to do what they wanted to do. And so that's why you started seeing the ball get thrown around so much more.
Philly did not move a lot in the first half. And I'm talking about the defensive line. They did not move a lot individually. But as the game went on and they start feeling who the offensive player was, they start what we call Ole and filling back into the gap. They started moving around a little bit. They started blitzing a little bit. So that changed the things. Our offensive line, due to the fact, like you would say, they did not play together enough in the preseason. Great practices, but not enough in the preseason games so they can form as one. And Tyler Guyton, baby, you started the game out great, and then you start giving the guy 2 ways. Hey, you got to stay one way, outside, turn and run.
Yeah, definitely more to build on and more things to learn from. A lot of good things from the young guys on this roster. A lot of things that they've got to clean up going into next week against the New York Giants. We've got more post-game coverage coming your way here from the Star in Frisco. Cowboys game night to start very shortly here from Frisco as we break down the Cowboys' first game of the season. It ends in a loss, 24-20, the final score against the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Here are the final stats brought to you by Miller Lite. We'll see you next time on The First Word, presented by Dr. Pepper.